time grief we go, gotta learn to let it go.
Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast, where we talk about living consciously and helping people uncover their essential selves so that they can stop sleepwalking through life.
Welcome back to the Wake the F Up podcast. I'm Katy Coffee, and today I am speaking with Miss Dionne Eleanor. We're so glad to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm super excited.
Alex is out currently, so for a short little season, I'm going to be doing some interviews, and we really wanted Dionne to come on because she's going to be leading our Rebirth Retreat 2024 this year, and we have a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions for you. Before we start talking about the Rebirth Retreat, I just want to hear some of your story. I'm curious about how you got into doing this. So, what is your title?
My name is Dionne Eleanor. I was born in the UK. I have different mixture of heritage, you could say. So my family are a mixture of Jamaica, Barbados, Germany, Scottish, Welsh, and Israeli. And so there's a huge mixture there, and that is definitely informed part of the work that I do today, and I'll explain that shortly. And I would be positioned as a relationship and empowerment mentor. What I do is I create transformative experiences that address the hidden barriers to well-being. So intergenerational trauma, ancestral trauma, grief, heartbreak, burnout, and all of these things that are not really addressed in typical wellness programs, right? They're the silent drainers and that we have. And I've been working on retreats for over 12 years. My journey to working in wellness actually started way back over 20 years ago. I myself had a spinal injury, which I still live with now. It's called spondylolisthesis, grade 3 to 4, which means 75% of my spine has slipped. And I've managed to stabilize it through strengthening my body and my core. So that was an initiation into my path of wellness. One day I woke up and I couldn't walk, and I started to then rehabilitate myself naturally through the support of different mentors and teachers that I attended at that time. Then I started to learn about the techniques, and I started with yoga, nutrition, functional nutrition, and all of those things that look after the physical body. Along that path of education, I started to get curious about why so many good people who worked on themselves were single or unhappy in their relationships. And so that's when I started to look into studying about relationship psychology and sexuality and intimacy and all of the most subtle things in terms of wellness. And I've never looked back since. Before working in wellness, I was working in corporate. So I was climbing the corporate ladder. So I can really relate to a lot of people that come onto retreats that have what we would call normal everyday jobs. And then I went full in to sharing my work with the world. And so when I say relationship and empowerment mentor, what I'm looking at is the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with your intimate partner, if you have an intimate partner, and the relationship that you have with your family and loved ones as well. And so it's from this place of integration of relationship that our wellness can actually really be transformed. A lot of the time when people work on themselves, maybe they even go on a retreat, which we're going to be talking about today, they do all this work on themselves, and then they go back home, they go into their work environments, and just feels like Groundhog Day, like same stuff, different day. They had this great experience and they don't know how to untangle that. So the way that I work is really holistically. We're not only looking at nourishing your body, but we're looking at improving your relationship skills so that everything that you work on with yourself in terms of improving your health and your relationship with yourself is then sustainable in your relationship with other people, whether it's at your work, at home with your children, at home with your intimate partner, or sometimes it's to do with ex-partners or family members.
So if you were to give someone your first piece of advice, the first thing that you were like, if you get nothing else from this conversation, what's one thing that you always tell people that's really important when they're starting their wellness journey to self-healing?
The best advice I can give people in general is to tap into curiosity and investing in yourself. A lot of the time when it comes to retreats, especially, there is an expense, there's a price tag, right? And sometimes people can feel a little bit apprehensive, especially if it's their first time, especially if they've got a lot of things spiraling on in their lives. And a lot of the time, it can feel really scary to make that investment. And when we're leading from that fearful place, we get controlled by it. So, but when we lean into curiosity of why are we feeling uncomfortable, what does this mean for ourselves, then we can really tap into another narrative. Investing in yourself is crucial if you want to just live in today's world. The world is spiraling so fast. There's so much going on. If you don't invest in yourself, then you're really going to feel a lot of the negative health effects that a lot of people are feeling today: stressed, burnt out, a sense of melancholy, a sense of not feeling really like you are living your life to the fullest or embracing living. And so investing in yourself is super important. Do it every day. You can do it in small ways. I invest in myself, for example, every day by waking up and having a 5-minute meditation practice and then reading one page of a book, making sure that I hydrate myself. So making sure that you invest in yourself, and then staying curious is really important, because that's what helps you to move forward and stop you from getting trapped into cycles with yourself and also with other people. It can really help a lot in conflict with yourself and with others.
There was something that you said that resonated with me, and I want to go back to. You said something along the lines of a lot of people make decisions based in fear, or they're afraid to maybe take a step forward because they're thinking in a fear based mindset. How do you think that people can recognize when that's happening to them?
Overthinking, and by overthinking, I mean that the thoughts are constantly going round and round in their head, the same repeated thought. um, they will also know when they're looking for a validation, when they're looking for sort of validation through others. So they might be using that reoccurring thought and asking other people about it. You can usually feel it in your body as well. A lot of the time, when people feel when they're operating from fear, and there's sensation and discomfort in the digestive system, they might even have digestive issues, might even notice change in their breath. Um, some people get louder when they're fearful and more talkative, and some people withdraw. So usually what happens is, if you're a talkative person and you're in fear, so if you're naturally talkative, you might go the opposite way. You start to retract a little bit. And if you are more of a quiet person, you might start to notice that you are kind of discreetly reaching out to try and get validation from other people. So the nature of how you are might not look like it's changing in an obvious way, but there'll be certain patterns within you that are showing that you're operating from a fear place.
Feeling it in your body. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. One more question. You're from the UK, so how did you end up at Mixto? And then let's go into talking about the retreat this year.
Yeah, well, I just feel so blessed. So I came to Mexico. I'll go back a step and explain that I came to Mexico just before the pandemic. Before the pandemic started, I was working on yachts writing wellness programs for people. I was working with Canyon Ranch on yachts and on different cruise lines around the world. And so I had a really good life. And I was in the Bahamas when the pandemic kicked off. So I was not ready to go home to the UK. And I was quite happy to stay on the boat. But anyway, I ended up going back to the UK because that was the protocol. Everyone had to go back to their home countries of their passport. And so I went there and I said, I didn't really see the pandemic as anything serious. When you're working at sea, you're in your own world. And so I went back home and I didn't really know what was going on. But I'm a big believer in using every day that I can to provide value and contribute to the world that I live in. And so I started looking up and seeing where in the world could I go, because it was December at that time. It was pretty cold in the UK. So I was thinking, where can I go? What can I do? What can I be of service? And so one of the things I did was create a retreat in Croatia, because that was in a green zone for travel at that time. And then I was working on being at home around my family for a little bit longer, for a period of time. After that, I thought, what do I really want to do? I knew that I didn't want to be based full time in the UK. I'd spent a lot of time outside of the UK, and I'd learned a lot about myself and what I liked in my living environment. So I actually thought about moving to Portugal. I went to Portugal, got residency, and during that time there, I couldn't find somewhere to live. And I ended up speaking to a friend who had an apartment in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta. I had no plan of moving to Mexico. And I didn't say yes, even though they were offering me to come and just stay for a couple of weeks and enjoy it, because I actually had experienced a sexual assault in Mexico a couple of years before, whilst working at sea.
Wow.
Totally off the radar. And it was at that point when I got that opportunity that I realized that I could have been making a decision based on fear. If I had said no, it was totally going to be linked with that sexual assault, because there was no other reason in my mind. I could feel it in my body also. And so I got curious, and I said, I'm going to lean into this, and I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to go. So I actually came over to Mexico on a vacation, helping my friend out with their apartment. And to make friends, I thought, let me see about offering my breath work and meditation and wellness practices on the beach, so that I can meet people in alignment to who I am, as a single woman, in a safe way. From there, I ended up getting headhunted by another retreat center, and coordinating and planning out their retreats. They have back-to-back retreats here in Mexico. So I did that for a couple of years. Ended up leaving there because it was quite intense work, and I didn't feel that I was embodying wellness, and that's a big importance to me, to embody and practice what I preach to others. So we were short staffed. I felt that I was overworking, and so I took a break, and then I ended up getting approached by Dionne Eleanor and Mixto to join their team as a resident teacher, and that's when I met you all there, and it's been a great pleasure. And so, I guess in short, it just was a case of me saying yes, in honor of fear, facing that fear. I mean, I've felt extremely safe being here, and I've worked through that trauma in such profound ways. I'd already felt that I'd worked through it before moving, but with something happening like that, it can peel back in layers, and this is something that we'll be exploring in the retreat as well. And Mexico is a country that has a lot of misconceptions, but especially here in the side of Puerto Vallarta, in the Pacific side, it's so safe, it's so beautiful. It's what's led me to be able to move here as a single woman, having experienced a crime, being, experienced a crime myself here in a different side. It was actually on the side of Cozumel. So to have
Mm.
nothing have happened to me, have community here. I was actually saying to a friend back in the UK the other day that I would give them my emergency contact details in case they don't know who to contact, because I'm here by myself without long-term friends and that have known me for like 20 years, or family. And I was like, wow, I have like 10 people that I could, and I have more than 10 people, but I have a lot of local people that are so supportive. And it's a really beautiful and amazing place. So I'm glad that I wasn't led by that fear. And Zinalani and Mixto is just an incredible place for a retreat. I feel really glad to be there as part of the team. It's just magical because you get to really experience real Mexico, and you have the comfort as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. I would have never known that. I think it's so cool that sometimes in life we get opportunities to rewrite a narrative. Like
Mhm.
things come back full circle, and then it's like you're faced with this option, and you can go down one path, you can go down the other. And I think that it's really cool that you took the chance to rewrite that story, go back to a place and rewrite the trauma into being a part of your story that becomes power instead of dominating you in a fear-based way. So I think that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
uh, yeah. So the rebirth retreat, we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. I love it. I've only been once, but I cannot wait. This is going to be awesome. It's truly so beautiful and so safe, like you said. Let's go over it. What does the rebirth retreat mean to you? What does that mean?
For me, the rebirth retreat, I would also use another, I guess, power word you could say, because rebirth is a power word. It's almost like reclaiming yourself, right? So you are shedding this skin like a snake, and you are stepping into a new level and a new layer of yourself. You're reclaiming lost parts of yourself that you haven't had time to connect with, maybe for years, maybe for months. It could even be weeks. It doesn't have to always be a long time, but you're allowing yourself to let go, to shed, and then to reclaim. And so the rebirth retreat to me means an immersive container where you really get to focus on that full time, and so that you can really get leverage in your life.
Awesome. I think we should go into detail about what literal classes mean. For instance, before I did breath work, I had zero understanding of what that was. So we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. We're going to be doing master classes, breath work, yoga, sound ceremonies. Can you give an in-depth description of what it means and what it looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to start the retreat with a welcome ceremony that really allows everybody to feel that they've arrived into the space and forms a sense of unity and union. Because a lot of the time, people come to retreats by them feeling like they're coming by themselves, but the reality is you're coming into a community of like-minded people that maybe they won't have the same challenges as you, but they've got the commonality that they've had challenges and they're ready to overcome them and move forward and rebirth and reclaim, just like yourselves. And then each morning you're going to have either intention settings, meditations, and some form of movement. Moving the physical body is a really important part of our overall well-being, but especially with regulating the nervous system and healing the body and the nervous system. And so the any movement will be multi-level, so it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you're an advanced practitioner, and it's inclusive style of teaching. So by that means if you're an absolute beginner, the whole class is not necessarily going to know that you're an absolute beginner. In the same way, if you're advanced, there's going to be different options through each class. In terms of the movement, we're going to have yoga in the morning predominantly. We're going to have some what's called ecstatic dance as well. So to describe those a little bit, the yoga, we're going to be incorporating what's known as vinyasa yoga, which is a very fluid, creative style of yoga, very fun. But again, we're going to be listening to people's bodies and seeing who arrives and how they arrive. And so there's not actually going to be a rigid checklist that you're going to need to fulfill before getting here. We're going to be working with you as people before you arrive. And Kundalini yoga is all about moving energy up and through the body, removing stagnant energy. It's very focused on specific hand positions, breath work practices. It's very liberating and very nourishing for the nervous system. And so that's the other style of yoga that you'll be experiencing as well. You might also hear about yin yoga, which will have some afternoons, which is slow, deep, restful, where you'll be experiencing a lot more focus on flexibility, on what we call a yin energy, so the opposite of a go, but a more restful energy, and maybe some elements of other styles as well. There's so many styles of yoga, if I'm honest. If you Google the names of yoga, you will find a lot. But those are going to be the dominant styles. And then in terms of the workshops, this is actually really unique about the Wake Wellness Retreat, because you're going to experience workshops that I haven't actually seen these workshops in a retreat setting like this. They're deep, they're profound, but they're also going to be taught in a fun way. And so, especially if you're a person that is quite inquisitive, quite curious about being the best version of yourself, but maybe you don't resonate with, let's say, one-on-one traditional therapy, or you don't have the financial budget to have that week in, week out, or the time budget, you're going to be able to attend workshops where you're going to have huge breakthroughs. So, for example, we're going to have a workshop on understanding and releasing grief. In that workshop, I'm going to be sharing one of my frameworks, which is called the 7 Wise Bodies, which is looking at how we move through grief layer by layer. We're also going to look at the classic cycle of grief and the different emotions that we tend to go through. These workshops are going to be interactive. So although, some of them will be guided by me and by Kali, as the leaders of the workshops, we really respect your life experience as well, and we'll be integrating that into the workshop. We're also going to have workshops on ancestral healing. Why? Because a lot of the time when we are operating from a place of pain, sometimes the way that we are responding to that pain, we are responding in a behavioral pattern that actually wasn't necessarily our own. And so we're going to look at our different lineages from our parents, the relationship with our mother or father, our grandparents, and maybe general, because it will be a little bit challenging to go super deep on this in a group setting, but in general, where there might be certain patterns and certain ancestral lineages that influence your behavior. And from that place of view, you can start to really liberate yourself from, like I mentioned, patterns and behaviors that really aren't yours, and choose the narrative that you want to live by instead. Going back to movement for a moment, because I mentioned ecstatic dance. Ecstatic dance is one of my favorite practices. Katie's actually going to be providing some of the beats and the music for that, which I'm excited about. This is a way to learn to be in your body and be with your body, moving it in a way that literally feels ecstatic. If it's your first time, it might not feel as ecstatic initially when you start the session, and that's why we're going to be supporting you and guiding you. You're going to find a sense of liberation in moving your body without the use of drugs or alcohol or stimulants. You're going to find a way to be able to move your body in a community space, in a space that might feel, dare I say, public, because there's going to be other people. You're not going to be in private in your bedroom. So you're going to have this great liberation of being seen, moving your body without stimulants. And it's just a great practice. It's something that can really change your confidence levels and the way that you look at the world. And then we're also going to have workshops on how to release negative limiting beliefs, voice and heart expansion workshop, which is using our voice therapeutically to heal the heart. We're going to have workshops on setting boundaries, keeping boundaries in different ways, attachment and love languages. Is going to be another workshop, so we can really understand the way that we receive love, the way that we show love, the way that we attach in our relationships. And so these workshops, they are designed to nourish yourself, but they're also going to give you fundamental skills that you can take into the real world outside of the retreat. Outside of that, you're also going to have the Temazcal, which is a traditional Mexican ceremonial sweat lodge, where you stay in it's like a clay, you could say cave. It would be somebody who's never seen one before. It's completely dark inside. You'll be with a shaman and who will lead different chants and different songs. It's an incredible practice. And that Temazcal actually is the significance in the culture of Mexico and the Mayan land is a rebirth itself. The idea is that you go in as if you're going into the womb and you come back out reborn. Finally, another workshop that we're going to do, which is going to be great for the women and any men that attend, which is going to be a workshop on masculinity, love, and trauma. We've seen it rise in a lot of facilities and resources for women over the last few years, especially since the rise of feminism. However, now we're starting to see an awakening for more education on what is healthy masculinity, what does that look like? And so whether you're a man attending the retreat and wanting to answer those questions, or you're a woman with a partner who's wanting to definitely answer those questions, or you are looking to attract a partner, you're going to be having some wisdom from there as well, which I'm very excited about, especially because one of my majors when I was studying relationship psychology, sexuality, and intimacy was masculinity and men. So it's something that I'm very passionate about helping and supporting people with. So yeah, it's a comprehensive schedule. There is, believe it or not, going to be free time as well. You're going to be well fed. The food is locally sourced. It's the only way that you can get it there in Camixto, where the retreat is held. Predominantly organic where possible, and everything is cooked fresh every day. So it's just going to be this amazingly beautiful, nourishing retreat.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I need a retreat. How do you think people know that it's time for them to go on a retreat? What are some telltale signs that you need a retreat?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, this is a good question because sometimes people will think, "Ah, I've already done X, Y, and Z, maybe I don't need a retreat." And I'll give an example for myself. And I just say this to give an example. I feel very blessed. But this year, for example, I have been to Hawaii and I went to the Amazon rainforest. And then I was actually feeling like I needed a retreat. And I'll explain why. And so, in my logical brain, I was saying, well, you've already been away twice. Like, why do you need to have a break? Well, here's the clue. If you're feeling overwhelmed, disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your purpose, stuck in a routine, finding it difficult to access answers about life decisions, especially about transitional times. When your mind or body might be showing symptoms. So, for example, maybe you're not putting on a lot of weight, but you're feeling heavier, or maybe you're losing weight. Maybe you're noticing that you would normally be a lot more social and you're withdrawing. So that these are some of the telltale signs. For me personally, for example, I noticed that, especially with the nature of my work, I was starting to get confused about a specific life decision, and it was whether to visit my family this Christmas. And so it seems like a no-brainer, right? Of course, you're going to visit your family this Christmas, but actually, in Mexico, December is a very busy time, and I'm already going to be going to Montreal for work, Bali as well, to assist a training. And so, being conscious of being present with the retreat center that I work with, and the commitments I have in Mexico and the clients that I have around the world, I wanted to make a conscious decision. And I found myself for some reason getting overwhelmed, which felt strange to me. But I'm human and I'm a big ambassador of practitioners um, testifying their humanness, you could say, and not putting themselves on this pedestal and making out that they are, you know, um, superior to the people that they work with, because the reality
Right.
is that we are all enough, right? And so, I took some time out. I did a home retreat, and the answer came very quickly just from allowing myself to have that time to pause. So, again, you will know when you start to feel overwhelmed, disconnected, if you're not finding answers to questions. If you this is going to sound like funny, but if you are somebody that doesn't pray and you find yourself praying, that might be a sign that you need a retreat.
That's a funny example. If you don't normally pray and you're starting to pray, that's your sign. We'll see you at the Rebirth Retreat 2024, November 2nd through the 9th.
Yeah.
Awesome. What should people be packing?
Now, the good thing is you can get almost anything here, but what I would say is definitely sandals. I think they're called Teva is the brand, but basically the sandals that are well supported. You can carry flip flops, but if you can get the ones that kind of, I dare I say, I used to think when I was younger that they're very geeky, but they kind of strap around, the top of the foot.
Tivas.
Yeah, exactly, Tevas. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, they're also going to be great because they're going to keep your feet nice and airy, especially if they've got a good grip. You'll be able to then walk in the rural environment really comfortably without feeling like your feet are sweating. You can, as well as that, carry a pair of sneakers. Um, I love to carry waterproof ones that I made with Gore-Tex. It just makes me feel secure that my feet are never going to get soggy if I step into water. So it doesn't, you don't have to, but that's just a personal tip. If you have access to those, If you like to run, there's little bits of places where you can run, and so a good trail sneaker is better than carrying a typical normal one because it's a natural environment. Bathing suit, of course. Even if you're not a swimmer, we have the pools. And so you can lay in the pools, maybe a cover up to protect your skin a little bit from the sun because it will be warm. SPF as well. We are quite conscious here in Mexico about using SPF in the sea. So what I'd recommend is anything that is naturally based and chemical free. Just everyday clothes to do movement in. You don't need to carry anything particularly fancy. Maybe a couple of nice dresses, day dresses that you can throw over. I wouldn't worry about carrying anything that you need to iron. This is a space that you are not going to be judged. So predominant clothes are just clothes that you feel comfortable in. I definitely recommend you carry, something that you feel beautiful in, or just something that is just your favorite thing to wear, because that is just, a way of making you feel good about yourself as well. A thermos bottle, so that we can refill your bottles with water, because we'll have water stations and ice around. Although if you don't have one, you will be given glasses, maybe even a fresh coconut, so you can drink directly from the coconut. You have Wi-Fi there, so if you want to carry your mobile to be in contact with people, of course you can carry that. Sometimes people carry their laptops to watch something at night or to research a little bit of something that they have learned, or to read up on something. You don't really need these technology items, but they're things that can help you feel comfortable and connected. And especially if you've got things going on back home and you just want a little bit of connection, then you can pack them and know that we've got good Wi-Fi connection there.
As soon as you're there, click.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in.
Otherwise, just carrying yourself, you really don't need much here. Don't forget your passport, otherwise you'll get, turned away at the airport.
I'm super excited to hang out with you for the week. We're going to have a great time. I feel like you covered everything, especially when you went over earlier, like about what's going to be unique about this retreat. But is there anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, 2 more things for the packing list. Just remembered sunglasses and and maybe a visor. So I've got what we call a sombrero. I don't even know the English name now. I've been here too long, but those big hats. And again, sometimes, especially if you're coming from a cooler environment, you might be more sensitive to the heat. And so a visor offers you the opportunity for your head to feel that there's air, but the sun to not be hitting down on your face. So those could be a couple more things, and maybe just a hoodie. And a roll-up anorak. I don't think it's going to rain at that time of year, but a little hoodie in case you feel a little bit cooler in the evening is always handy, especially for the flight. And an anorak, then if there's a light drizzle, then you've got that. Some people also like to have the shoes that they can wear in the ocean, and their own snorkeling mask, because the water around Kimixto is very beautiful. It's very clear. So if you like snorkeling and you prefer your own mask, you can bring your mask with you as well. But yeah, I invite people to, the only other thing I would say is I invite people to reach out to me if they have any questions, or to any of the team. We're going to be going through a lot together as a group on the retreat. There might be some of you that want to go deeper, and we can discuss that at that time when you come. But just come with an open mind, with an open heart. Know that you're in safe hands, in hands of people that have spent a lot of time, finance, educating themselves, and actually been through a lot as well. I always say, fortunately and unfortunately, I've experienced a lot of loss at a young age. I've experienced different traumatic life events, and my one wish is just to help people not experience the level of pain that I have had to get on the other side of. And every day that I'm able to do that, it makes me feel good and makes up for everything that I went through. And so it's a great pleasure. I'm very grateful for the trust of people that have booked on, especially people that maybe haven't met me before. And I'm really excited to meet you all.
We're so excited. And I feel like the heart of WAKE is just all about vulnerability and being open and honest. And I think I would want people to know that anything that they say in this space stays at the retreat. For me, last year, I was able to come in and share some things with some people, but I feel like this year I'll be much more better to just like let my guard down. And I know that anything that I share in this space is not going to leave. So that's one thing I wanted to say. Also, if you are coming, unless you have a room booked all by yourself, we do provide earbuds so that you don't have to, if someone were to snore, you don't have to hear them. But I'm like an earpod girly. I have like my AirPods. I have these, the big ones, the small ones, all different kinds of sound situations. We do provide some, but they're not like super fancy or anything. They're just like the plain, yellow ones.
We are so in common with that way. I have earplugs, earpods, ear defenders. Like, I love it. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today. And thank you, Dionne, so much for your time. We're so excited. It's going to be an awesome time. Again, for everybody listening, we still have spots available at the Rebirth Retreat, November 2nd through the 9th this year, 2024. It's in Puerto Vallarta, and it's going to be an unforgettable experience. So we would love to see you there. And you will see Dionne and myself there, as well as Callie. And it's going to be a great space to just unwind and relax and be refreshed. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Dionne.
Exactly. Thank you, Katy.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this episode of Wake the F Up, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join the Wake community by downloading our app. Just search for The Wake Wellness in the Apple or Android App Store. And follow us on Instagram at The Wake Wellness. Thanks for listening.